Do you like rants about personal finance? If you do, you're in the right place.
Hello, welcome to my video. Hello!
Let's talk about the Netflix show, Marriage vs. Mortgage.
If you're like me, as soon as this show came on Netflix, your interest was piqued. I know that I already watched every single episode. And if you don't know what this show is, it's called Marriage vs. Mortgage. Marriage vs. Mortgage is a show that follows these couples in Nashville, and they have to choose between buying a house and having a mortgage or buying a wedding and having a marriage. And the entire premise is that they can only choose one. Now, I know that as a personal finance nerd, I am seriously interested in this. And I also know that this show has terrible messaging on both fronts. That's right. I'm not only downvoting the marriage part, I'm also downvoting the mortgage part. It's bad. But let me just start with the marriage. For people who chose marriage and had a huge wedding, I will say this. I do not think that anyone should be denied the opportunity to enjoy what might end up being the best day of their life. But the price tag is insane, and we've normalized this. The average cost of a wedding in the United States is $30,000. $30,000! And even if you try to get rid of the outliers by taking the median instead, it's still $15,000. That's too much. People can have a huge grand wedding for $5,000. Why do you need a photographer for 10 hours? You're only gonna hang 2 or 3 photos from your wedding in your house. Why do you have to get custom everything? What's wrong with generic? And why do you need a live band instead of your friend who plays a beautiful guitar and has a beautiful voice to boot? And don't pay $3,000 for flowers. They're $10 at Sprouts and Trader Joe's. Let me run you through some numbers. From a simple wedding to a mid-sized wedding, all the way to a grand wedding.
Remember how I said a wedding on average costs $30,000? Well, here's that breakdown. If you're ugh, that's too much and you want more of a mid-sized wedding, literally just take this budget and cut it in half. I'm not joking. You can get the same caliber of item and services, but for 50% of the cost. If you're like me and want a cheap wedding, I have quotation marks around cheap because it's by comparison. This is still a very grand wedding. Well, you can look at this budget. As you can see, venue is $0. And that's because the trick to a cheap wedding is knowing people. So if you know somebody with a gorgeous backyard, throw your wedding there. And if you have people in your family who can throw down, well, now you know what food you're going to serve your guest. And you just have to figure out what you really want. For example, videography. If it were me, I would just airdrop myself whatever video my family and friends took. Ooh, look, guest entertainment. I put that at $0 because if you're not satisfied with good food and good music, listen, I don't know what to tell you. It wouldn't be my wedding you were coming to. These are just a few examples, but as you can see, where there's a will, there's a way. And once you decide that you want a more reasonably priced wedding, you'll find that there are a ton of resources out there specifically for you to have the best day of your life, but at a price that doesn't make you go into debt.
When you can have something great for thousands of dollars, it doesn't make sense to try to have something perfect for tens of thousands of dollars. And it never makes sense to saddle yourself with so much debt that you'll be paying it off for months or years, even though when all is said and done, all you're going to have is a memory. Wedding debt is a real thing. Almost 1/3 of people go into debt to finance their wedding, and over 1/3 of those who do regret it. On average, people borrow over $10,000. They use personal credit cards, personal loans, and yes, even home equity. 74% of couples actually plan to go into debt for their wedding. You cannot be one of these people. This might be an unpopular opinion, but when you go into debt, it needs to be for an asset, something that's lasting. Not a car, but maybe a home, an education, medical bills, something where you see the difference years or decades later. And I'm not one of those people who are like, everyone else is stupid and everyone just has to think like me and blah 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 and blah 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 and I'm the only one who's right and blah 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 blah. I legitimately understand why people would want to spend a pretty penny on their wedding day. And watching Marriage vs. Mortgage only made me realize that more. For example, There was this older gay couple who like really wanted to get married, especially since when they met, they weren't even allowed to get married. And how can you tell someone that they can't have something that they've always wanted? There were so many people who had put years, if not decades, of thoughts, hopes, and dreams into a single day. And to tell someone that they're stupid for trying to buy something that they've been fantasizing about since they were 6 is just not it. And I want to go on record and say that I don't think that the people who chose marriage on this show are stupid. But I do think that there was a way for the couples who chose wedding to get everything they wanted, but for a lot less. At the end of the day, compromise is the name of the game. You still want something special that you remember for the rest of your life, you just need to scale down. Quick side note, you don't have to listen to me. It's your money, so spend it how you like. But I do have one request. I know there are some people who primarily use their wedding to appease others. Don't do that. Don't go into crippling debt because you're afraid of confrontation or hurting someone's feelings. That is not the way. How much you spend on your wedding is your decision. And if you're willing to go into debt despite financial wisdom, at least have it be your decision. Alrighty, I've talked enough about the marriage side of this show. You know how I feel about it. Now, let's get to the mortgage. If I were on the show and I had to choose between a marriage or a mortgage, I would definitely choose mortgage. That said, they were both kind of bad options. People should have a place to live, but not at the very end of their budget. Why buy the max of what you can afford? You don't want the stress that comes with having a mortgage so massive that you have to keep your job no matter what. Buy something at the lower end of your budget so that you're not scrambling for money every single month. In Marriage versus Mortgage, all of the couples who chose mortgage chose exactly what they could afford. And even if they were under budget, it was only by a couple of $1,000s. And I could just see it. I could see the financial strain that was going to be put on them for a long time. This is all a part of America's consumeristic, hedonistic hamster wheel. Because living exactly at your means is what makes you feel poor. It also makes you feel stressed. No savings because you spent everything you had on your dream house is what anxiety is made of. And if you give away all your money, you'll not only feel poor and stressed, you'll probably feel like the world is against you. Why? Because things go wrong when you buy a property. So many unplanned expenses. Your pipes freeze up and your house is flooded? You gotta pay for that. Oh, your HOA is updating everything? Hey, that's your wallet. Oh, you bought in a really nice area? Good for you. Get ready for your taxes to go up.
Now, you might be wondering how much it costs to maintain a house. Well, a good rule of thumb is between 1% and 4% of the price you bought it for. So if you bought a $200,000 home, well then you're looking at maintenance costs of between $2,000 and $8,000. Another rule you can use is you can do $1 per square foot. It's a little bit more conservative, but it works. However, the thing you need to remember is that this is just run-of-the-mill maintenance costs, okay? This is not any type of major repair. So another good rule of thumb is however much you're setting aside for maintenance, you need to set the same amount aside for like some type of disaster to go wrong. So if you have $6,000 for maintenance, you need another $6,000 in the bank just in case something else goes awry, because it always does. These are some of the hidden costs of home ownership. And never forget, you also have other bills to pay like electricity, water, utilities. It just gets really expensive. So buying something at the top of your budget will put a big strain on your bank account.
If you want to live with less stress and feel like you're wealthy, you have to live below your means. Financial flexibility is what lets you breathe without having your breaths turn into a panic attack. I mean, I swear to you, there are so many people who make a ton of money, much more than you, who feel financially pressed because they are spending exactly what they make. I also swear to you that there are a lot of people who are making less than you and feel just as happy, if not happier, because they're living below their means. Do not empty out your bank account and then struggle to pay your mortgage because you have no money. You know what also happens when you have no money? That's right, you pay some big fat opportunity cost. You could max out your retirement accounts. You could do that thing that you've always wanted to do. You could go on that trip that you've been dreaming about. All you have to do is spend less than you earn. because spending more, especially on a house, means less time off, less income that you see, less dinners and celebrations, 30 more years of work because you can't afford not to, and the list goes on. I know buying a house might be an emotional process, but you probably shouldn't treat it like one because there are far-reaching consequences for buying a house that you can't or can only just barely afford. You don't want to have an above-average income and yet still struggle to pay your bills no matter what you do. It was honestly a little bit hard to see the couples in Marriage versus Mortgage financially burden themselves because, make no mistake, that's what they were doing. So in buying a house, set a budget below your means and then stick with it. Your real estate agent might suggest that you look for homes outside of your budget. Say no, because you need to remember that they get paid more the more you spend, and that they are very used to people stretching themselves thin. I say this hypocritically because gosh dang, you really do get caught up in the house hunting process. I mean, real estate market is crazy, y'all. Things just go so fast, and then it can get so expensive, and then your head, it just feels like it's spinning, and like, it's rough out there. But buying a house that makes sure that you never have money left over at the end of the month is not the answer. I'm going to end my rant here, but what you need to take away from this video is that at the end of the day, you should be able to afford a marriage, a mortgage, and have money left over. Like I said, that's it. Thanks for watching all the way to this point, and if you like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I don't know why the words are getting caught in my mouth. Ah! Ooh, okay, can you stop? People can have a huge, grand wedding for $5,000. That's 10. Ha! So, let's get to the mortgage. I still just have a huge critique. One thing in particular, and that's that